Additional details on Suzanne Somers' life are now being divulged, even though she passed away 2 years ago. The truth is more moving than anybody could have imagined, revealing both her public troubles and her private resilience. Her courageous battle with sickness, marriage, and professional life are all getting the spotlight they deserve. There was more to her than that. She loved deeply, had many ideas, and was a joyful woman. But at what point in time were the profound difficulties that ultimately proved fatal to her? Just what was it that she wanted the public to be aware of? Come with us as we reveal the hidden struggles and revelations of Suzanne Somers, which surfaced 2 years after her passing. The life of Suzanne Somers was vibrant, full of love, and full of energy. She fought a silent war for over 20 years behind all that brightness. Her breast cancer diagnosis came in April 2000. Everything changed in that instant. She decided to go against the grain instead of doing what most people do. She underwent radiation treatment and surgery to remove the tumor, but she declined chemotherapy. It all began with that choice, which sparked a lifelong dialogue. Most people assumed she would listen to conventional medical advice when she received her diagnosis. Following radiation and surgery for breast cancer, chemotherapy is often prescribed by doctors to help lower the likelihood of the disease returning. Suzanne, however, made an alternative decision. She had faith in her own strategy, which was based on holistic health principles. Additionally, she did not conceal it. Her decision was announced to the world. Reactions varied among individuals. People praised her for her courage. Some people thought she was taking a huge risk. In contrast, Suzanne exuded an air of nonchalance. What she was doing, she thought, was the correct thing to do. There was no decline in her strength as the years went by. The volume of her ideas increased. She started telling everyone about her habits, goods, and health tips. She was interviewed, published books, and delivered speeches. She was very forthright about the fact that she was doing things her way. The fact that she persisted is what gave her story its impact. Even after years of seemingly being under control, breast cancer can return. Suzanne, though, continued on with courage and a radiant grin. She continued to appear on television, spend time with her family, and grow her health business. It seemed as though she were asserting her continued presence and power. Her infectious spirit shone through despite her condition. She demonstrated how to maintain an active lifestyle, wrote about hormones and aging, and contributed to health programs. She spent her days writing, managing her health brand, and spending quality time with her beloved husband, Alan Hamill. She had a great and strong bond with him. Despite her health problems, he was there to support her and encourage her to continue on her journey. Another public speech was made by Suzanne in July 2023. Specifically, it was shown that the cancer had come back. She had handled unfavorable health news before, and she handled it gracefully this time too. She claimed to have been there and done that before, so she was prepared to do it again. Her method of healing remained her belief. She maintained an optimistic tone despite her deteriorating condition. It was October 2023, and the cancer had spread. Even though Suzanne's strength was fading, she made sure to spend time with those she cared about. In Palm Springs, her relatives surrounded her and remained close. Her spouse reminisced, delighting in her company and quietly loving her in her last days. On October 15th, the day before her 77th birthday, she gently passed away. The timing was delicate, as if she had clung on for dear life. In her last months, she did the things she liked, spent time with her loved ones, and felt a little bit alive. She had repeatedly expressed her desire to avoid being portrayed as a victim. She aspired for others to perceive her as an independent spirit who fearlessly confronted life's obstacles. She was successful in many respects. Suzanne refused to be defined by her disease. She charted her own course. After reflecting on Suzanne Somers' 23-year battle with breast cancer, it becomes evident that she was up against more than simply illness. The way it was discussed was being altered by her. People reflected on their own agency and the impact of their decisions in light of her life. There was a lot of dispute throughout her health path, but there was also a lot of strength. Even though she was in agony, she smiled and kept her head up. How did she manage to get healthy despite all these health problems? Influential health decisions and their ripple effects. Suzanne Somers was well known for her courageous decisions toward health and recovery, as well as her protracted struggle with disease. She got through tough times with the help of her strong principles. Beyond that, though, she broadcast her opinions to the entire globe. As time went on, she transcended being just a cancer survivor. In the realms of alternative medicine, wellness, and aging, she rose to prominence. Her thoughts aroused curiosity. However, they also sparked heated discussions and cautions from doctors. Although her interest in alternative medicine had been growing for some time before her death, it was after her breast cancer diagnosis that it really took off. Gaining mastery over her physical self was her goal. It wasn't merely about evading chemotherapy for her. It was all about finding a way to live that was effortless, harmonious, and balanced. She wanted to assist individuals in re-establishing a connection with their body's innate wisdom, since she thought modern society had become too disconnected from nature. Bioidentical hormone therapy was at the center of one of her widely held views. Hormones that mimic those produced by the body naturally are used in this treatment. Reason that these hormones would alleviate symptoms of menopause, aging, and exhaustion, particularly in women. She discussed them in her writings, interviews, and television appearances. Women who felt unheard or misunderstood by conventional medical institutions were among the many who took an interest. The hormone regimen that Suzanne followed was complex. Neither a tablet nor a lotion were sufficient for her. Hormone testing, individualized medication, and continuous support from specialists who valued this approach were common components of her treatment. Additionally, she advocated for a hormone therapy regimen that was more in harmony with nature. This regimen followed a monthly rhythm that was based on the moon cycle. Despite its widespread popularity, this proposal lacked the backing of credible scientific studies. Hormones weren't her last target. Among Suzanne's many recommendations for a healthy lifestyle were frequent supplementation, exercise, stress reduction, and a clean diet. Organic foods, detox programs, and all-natural cosmetics were her top recommendations. She gained a legion of devoted followers by providing an approach to health that was refreshingly unhurried and personable. Nonetheless, some doctors were concerned about Suzanne's wellness ideals. Her recommendations included some beneficial habits, like eating fresh foods and exercising, but others were either unproven or even harmful. Medical professionals and scientists criticized her for not adequately testing some of the treatments she recommended. People who listened to her advice might forego potentially life-saving medical treatment, they said. When this happened, prominent health groups and medical boards started to voice out. Contrary to what Suzanne had been led to believe, manufactured hormones are not subject to stringent oversight. Because of this, they can have an excessive amount or an inadequate amount of the hormone, depending on the pharmacy that makes them. Problems, such as increased cancer risk or organ damage, can arise for the user due to these variances. The fact that Suzanne continued to back medical professionals and procedures that had previously raised red flags raised further concerns. Dr. Stanislaw Brzezinski was one of the most divisive personalities she backed. He promoted anti-neoplastin therapy, a cancer treatment that has never been proven safe or effective by conventional means. Even though the treatment was not authorized by reliable medical authority, patients nonetheless paid substantial sums for it. Multiple investigations were conducted into Dr. Brzezinski's practice. People said he gave them false optimism. Nonetheless, Suzanne persisted in praising him and his job. To her, it seemed like he was assisting others in ways nobody else could. However, her statements brought him greater attention and, according to her detractors, made it more difficult for patients to discern what was actually safe. This pattern occurred multiple times. Suzanne enthusiastically discussed any new wellness ideas or products that she came across. Feeling youthful, powerful, and healthy was her goal. However, professionals cautioned the general public that a positive emotional state is not necessarily indicative of internal health. In particular, they warned that anyone coping with cancer or hormone-related issues should exercise extreme caution. Painful anecdotes were recounted by some physicians. They discussed others who wished to emulate Suzanne's approach and therefore declined radiation and chemotherapy. Those patients didn't make it in a few instances. Their loved ones were left to ponder whether other decisions could have prevented their deaths. These tragic anecdotes add to the rising tide of worry that well-meaning celebrity endorsements of questionable treatments could mislead the public. Opinions on Suzanne's wellness empire continued to be divided as time went on. Some hailed her as a trailblazer for daring to discuss women's health. Some people thought she was someone who unintentionally promoted harmful views. The wellness world was undoubtedly altered by her mere presence. She was instrumental in reviving dormant discussions. She had a way of making women feel heard and understood, particularly when doctors' offices were unfriendly or overcrowded. Suzanne frequently declared her intention to encourage individuals, particularly women, to assert agency over their own bodies. She thought everyone should seek knowledge, be curious, and reject unsatisfactory answers. She brought solace to countless in that manner. She advocated for the right to listen to one's body and exercise personal autonomy, especially in the face of opposition. Suzanne built a sizable wellness brand through her books, interviews, and merchandise. It included wellness retreats, coaching programs, vitamins, beauty creams, and everything in between. A platform that millions of people followed was developed by her. Her bright appearance, gentle voice, and infectious enthusiasm convinced many that her ideas had worked. Still, medical professionals kept sounding the alarm. They made the point that different people had different needs. They argued that people should use medical science in conjunction with their decision. Natural does not necessarily imply safe, and celebrities, no matter how sincere their intentions, are not necessarily the most reliable sources of information about one's health. Even after she went away, Suzanne's impact on the health industry was profound. Her legacy lives on through the books, recordings, and tales that she left behind. Her husband Alan paid tribute to her memory by discussing ways she may carry on her job, to revisit her counsel in digital form, and keep her voice alive. New AI-powered projects were actually developed. But Suzanne had to deal with more than just physical problems. The same was true of her career. Suzanne Somers and the secret struggle out of the light. After starring as the charming and vivacious Chrissy Snow on Three's Company, Suzanne Somers became famous all over the world. Her positive attitude and comic timing contributed to the show's late 1970s smash hit status. One of the most popular American television shows in the early 1980s was Three's Company, which included Suzanne as a major attraction. However, unseen problems were brewing, problems that would alter her professional trajectory irrevocably. I was making about $30,000 every episode when it aired. John Ritter, who played her co-star Jack Tripper, was bankrolling around $150,000. Because Suzanne thought her character was just as important to the play, she thought this was unjust. After consulting with her husband Alan Hamill, who doubled as her manager, Suzanne made the decision to request a raise equal to Ritter's. The producers were taken aback by her request when she made it. Despite her demands, they would not budge. According to them, Ritter was the show's major attraction, while Suzanne played a supporting role. The studio gave a resolute response. "We will not negotiate a raise." Suzanne was let go from the show after she refused to back down. She was only filmed for one scene per episode, apart from the rest of the cast, despite having a contract for an additional season. It was an embarrassing farewell. After that, one of the most watched shows on television cast Suzanne off the show, and her character Chrissy was replaced. Fired, she was relieved of more than just her position. Years of quiet and broken friendships were the results. Even though he and Suzanne had been close in the past, John Ritter severed all ties. Actress Joyce DeWitt, who played Janet, kept her distance as well. The show had turned into a traumatic recollection. The female pay disparity in Hollywood became emblematic of this time, which was about more than just money. However, Suzanne's position did not have widespread public backing in the early 1980s. She was frequently depicted by the media as demanding or materialistic. Her reputation in show business suffered as a result, with a slowdown in job offers. The next few years were the most challenging of her life as she attempted to restore her professional standing and honor. In 2012, after a long separation, Suzanne and Joyce DeWitt reconciled for an emotional on-screen chat. They shared stories of their prior experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in an effort to put their bitter sentiments to rest and clear the air. For viewers who had always wished the former co-stars would get back together, it was a moving scene. John Ritter adds a touch of melancholy to the story. In 2003, not long before he died suddenly, they made a quick reconciliation, gathering the fragments and revising the screenplay. She had to face the harsh reality of rejection in an industry she had once dominated after being fired from Three's Company. Her reputation for being demanding and tough had taken a hit. Suzanne didn't give up when her acting job offers dried up. She just changed her priorities. A new road was being carved out for her, one that gave her complete command over her public persona and professional trajectory. She put her trust on her knowledge, charisma, relatability, and rapport with female clients. She then began penning works on the subjects of health, wellness, and the emancipation of women. Not all of them were successful. Her followers adored her directness and the fact that she wasn't afraid to talk about taboo subjects like body image, menopause, and aging. A career in business was also an option for Suzanne. Her line of products included skincare, exercise gear, and nutritional aids. Her fitness equipment, the Thigh Master, became an icon in its own right. Despite the skepticism of some, the device's massive sales proved that she maintained a dedicated fan base. Despite the negative feedback she received, Suzanne persisted. She was a guest on talk shows, a Las Vegas performer, and the star of several sitcoms, including Step by Step, which aired from 1991 to 1998. She found renewed success on television and was able to connect with a younger audience thanks to that show. The capacity to recreate oneself was Suzanne's most striking quality. She took another position immediately after receiving an offer from Hollywood. She built her own website. Her personality became her brand, and she utilized her platform to promote the health choices she thought were important. She may never regain the glory days of her company. 3. But this strategy kept her in the spotlight and helped her financially. Her private life was unaltered over the years. She maintained a solid friendship with Alan Hamel for more than 40 years. Regardless of the difficulty or success, he was there for her. They found unwavering support in their connection. They were one of the rare long-lived power couples in show business, having collaborated on multiple projects both creatively and commercially. However, new obstacles did arise during her voyage. Her controversial health views, particularly her advocacy of alternative treatments, ignited heated controversy. There were some in the medical field who doubted the soundness of her recommendations. Some have remarked that she offered those who felt overlooked by conventional treatment a glimmer of hope, persisted despite the naysayers. She had faith in her work and thought that people should have agency over their own health and aging. Suzanne Somers transformed her most difficult experience, being fired, into a chance for fresh starts in many respects. Hope even in the depths of despair. Suzanne Somers was famous for much more than that. She got back up after falling flat on her professional and public faces. Supercharged, enlightened, and enhanced. The fact that she found strength in her suffering and continued to enjoy life despite setbacks makes her narrative all the more moving. Her unforgettable qualities were shaped by these instances of joy, bravery, and ingenuity. Many assumed Suzanne's career had ended with her dismissal from Three's organization, but her thoughts were different. She didn't just fade away. She took a daring step into the commercial world. While others saw a conclusion, Suzanne saw a beginning. She broke new ground in the wellness sector and quickly became a household brand synonymous with vitality, joy, and health. She was a huge hit in more than just sitcoms. The Thigh Master was another. A cultural icon it became. Because she believed in it, and because people believed in her, it sold all over the world. She transformed it into a commodity worth millions of dollars by using her charisma and celebrity. That was only the beginning. Even with exercise equipment, Suzanne wasn't done. In addition to her work on relationships, hormones, weight reduction, beauty, and aging, she authored more than 25 books on the subject. In addition to being educational, her works were deeply intimate. She encouraged women to embrace their changing bodies by sharing her story of menopause, her struggles with health, and her life overall. A few of her novels achieved phenomenal success. Hormone therapy, anti-aging medication, and mental recovery were just a few of the topics she covered on her platform. People felt understood by her writing. They were reassured that they were not alone. She continued to be active even while she fought off her illness. She kept giving interviews, hosting health programs, and making appearances on chat shows. Still grinning, she spoke. Her radiance was intact. Every day, she toiled away. People adored her because of it. Live performances, where Suzanne could combine music, storytelling, and fun, were another source of joy for her. Alan Hamel, her husband, and she frequently worked together on these projects. She counted Alan as a supporter, collaborator, and manager. From books to theatrical productions to health food brands, they worked together to create magic. New opportunities can arise at any moment, as she demonstrated. Suzanne's change was more than simply a return to stardom. It was a complete turnaround. A role model for millions of women, she achieved superstar status. Suzanne kept going even as she became older. She endured a long-term illness, breast cancer, that had returned multiple times since its initial appearance in the early 2000s. Still, she refused to allow her disease to define her. Her optimism, positivity, and love never wavered. Her death occurred in Palm Springs, California on October 15, 2023, only one day prior to her 77th birthday. She was accompanied by her family. Warmth and tranquility characterized her last days. According to many who knew her, she never stopped laughing, offering wise counsel, and joyfully embracing life. Alan and she had been wed since 1977, and their love had endured the years. Alan shared Suzanne's sentiment that he was her soulmate. Nearly half a century passed between them. During her last year, she pleaded with him to continue being joyful even after she had departed. She wished he wouldn't have to endure misery. Alan made his public speaking debut a year following her passing. Before she died, he told her how she had blessed his future happiness. Actress Joanna Cassidy became his companion later in life. A betrayal did not occur here. Suzanne was the one who had pushed for it. Her wish was that he would continue to enjoy life, be humorous, and love. Bruce Somers Jr. was Suzanne's only child from her previous marriage. Throughout her life, Bruce was there for her, lending a hand with business management on several occasions. She delighted her audience with tales of her family life and her pride as a grandma. Suzanne stated in her most recent interviews that she was fearless. A glorious afterlife was her belief. She spoke of a lovely life that had been full of love, purpose, and joy. Even now, her family feels the effects of that love. Approximately 18 months following Suzanne's demise in 2025, Alan Hamill made public a new undertaking that Suzanne had consented to during her lifetime. Along with programmers, he had built an artificial intelligence version of Suzanne. This artificial intelligence version may mimic her appearance, speech, and memory. Not scary at all. It was a touching tribute to her life that will last forever. Suzanne was rather enthusiastic about the proposal. In her final moments, she wished to continue motivating others. She hoped that her health lessons, laughs, and genuine connection with her audience would continue long after she had passed away. Her last bequest was this AI. Adding to its uniqueness was the fact that John Ritter was also going to be a part of the project. Her co-star from Three's Company, who went away in 2003. With the use of voice samples, vintage film, and AI, the AI project has the potential to resurrect Suzanne and John in fresh ways, maybe for comedic purposes or brief episodes. Seeing their favorite actors again wasn't the only thing that fans were excited about. Resolving past hurts was the central theme. After a previous rift, Suzanne and John reconciled. At this point, they were reunited, smiling and acting as if nothing had happened, and lifting our spirits to remember happier times. There is more to the AI version than meets the eye. Suzanne's own words, humor, and insight went into its construction. According to her loved ones, it's as if she was never gone. So, how would you describe Suzanne's life's highlight? Intimate recollections, tales, and the persistent discourse of the world. The tales spoken about Suzanne Somers bring joy to people's lives long after she has gone away. She was more than only a wellness figure, writer, and actress. She became an icon of courage, resilience, and optimism. Facts alone don't tell the whole story, but the public stories and the tiny things people remember about her do. This chapter delves into the subtle but significant ways Suzanne had an impression on her admirers, colleagues, and the entertainment industry. Her legacy lives on in media, debates, and reenactments, both real and fictional. Behind the camera, the unauthorized story of Three's Company was a made-for-TV movie that ran in the early 2000s. It re-emphasized Suzanne's past disagreements and emotional struggles, even though she initially disapproved of its creation. The film dramatized the happenings behind the scenes of her stay on the program. Her fight for fair pay and its consequences were the main points. People watched as a woman spoke out against a system that refused to take her concerns seriously. Interestingly, Suzanne and her co-star Joyce DeWitt each provided reviews of the picture after its release. This revealed the layered nature of their true narrative, which included miscommunication, pride, and, ultimately, reconciliation. This dramatization was more than a rehash of plot points. It made people wonder about loyalty, justice, and strength in a male-dominated field. It introduced Suzanne to a new audience and taught them that she is more than Chrissy Snow. She is a fighter. The internet, however, recounted a narrative distinct from that which Hollywood was penning about her life. One replete with cherished, humorous, and occasionally foolish recollections. Even after she passed away, Suzanne Somers' legacy continued to expand on fan forums and social media sites like Reddit. Her television roles weren't the only ones mentioned. They discussed her habits, her infectious laughter, and her unwavering positivity in the face of adversity. Even when she fumbled over a word or lost a line, her fans remember her radiant performance in live concerts and in interviews. According to one account, she once laughed so hard at something insignificant that she ruined a whole take. The scene had to be res-hot several times, but instead of receiving a reprimand, her pleasure brought the entire crew to laughter. Even though she was suffering with health issues in her later years, some of her fans noticed that she maintained an optimistic and positive attitude. Her openness and positivity were praised, and she was said to have made age and disease appear less daunting. Being flawless wasn't the point. It centered on being genuine, joyful, and loving. There were good times and bad times in Suzanne's relationship with her co-stars on Three's Company. Even though her rift with Joyce DeWitt and John Ritter was public knowledge, many were happy to see them reconcile. They reconnected years after their argument, joked about the past, and eventually forgave each other. In 2012, Suzanne and Joyce enjoyed a memorable moment when they were interviewed together and embraced. People watching from home also shed tears, a testament that friendships can heal, even after long quiet. It felt like a full-circle moment. Reuniting in such a heartfelt way allowed the ladies to put their feuding pasts in the past and demonstrated to fans how much they care for each other. The lesson it imparted was that no relationship is permanent and that resentment has no place in a life that is fleeting. People also recall the lovely connection she had with the crowd. Whether she was promoting a fitness gadget or discussing marital bliss, she possessed an uncanny knack for making her audience feel heard. No matter how old she became, that charisma remained. People got into her persona as much as they did her wares. After her TV drama ended, Suzanne Somers wasn't exactly a recluse, as many seem to have forgotten. Remarkably, she returned. Instead than on sitcoms, they performed live on stages and in Las Vegas. No elaborate sets or costumes were ever a part of her performances. They revolved on music, stories, and laughing. The platforms provided by these performances allowed her the freedom to express herself authentically. People really enjoyed seeing her live, unscripted, and impromptu. She sang songs, shared anecdotes from her life, and forged connections with listeners by her openness and humor. Her performance on stage was more intimate and authentic than her film efforts. She was able to gain the public's trust and make an impression in yet another way. Suzanne found solace in her home life, away from the prying eyes of fans and cameras. It is unusual for a celebrity couple to remain married for 40 years, but that is exactly what she did with Alan Hamill. Many people found their love tale to be both tender and full of adventure. Laughter notes, handwritten letters, and dreams were still there in their last days together. They were practically inseparable. She referred to him as her soulmate. Bruce, her son, and her stepchildren were also very important people in her life. Living a low-key Hollywood existence wasn't their thing. Rather, they lived their lives to the fullest, enjoying peaceful delight, wellness regimens, and family dinners. Among Suzanne's favorite things to do were to host tranquil evenings at home, cultivate organic food, and cook. In the dark, these gentle, everyday occurrences took center stage in her life. There was music, warmth, and smiles even in her dying days at her home. According to her husband's account, she continued to think about the future, laugh, and plan right up until the end. Your thoughts on Suzanne Somers' legacy and way of life? Please like, subscribe, and enable notifications if you found this helpful, and then leave a comment with your ideas.